Hello, class. This is Sammy. Hope you are all doing well. I wanted to come and share with you some thoughts in regards to the final project. What am I going to be doing? I'll go ahead and share with you my PowerPoint. I'm not gonna be sharing like I did before, as I did the video. I was sharing the PowerPoint. Um, but one of the things that I want to start with is, I am an associate pastor at Mundelein Spanish Church of the Nazarene in Mundelein, Illinois. And one of my, um, I oversee the youth ministry basically. So I could also be known as the youth pastor, but the official title is just I'm an associate pastor. So definitely what I did is I picked the same words that I use my Bibles or my word studies, just because I felt that was a good um, I wouldn't want to say reminder, but I think it would be a good sermon to preach to the teens once maybe once a year, always actually not even once a year. um, I try to always in every sermon that I do, I preach once a month, the first Sunday of the month. And I always give an invitation to individuals to put their faith and trust in Jesus. However, with the teens, most of my teens, if not every single teen in my youth group, would be qualified as, they were born in a Christian crib. Their parents are believers. Many of them, for example, I have a nephew that he's my nephew. So we go far back as to our, it would be my great grandfather, which would be his great great grandfather. He initially became a believer when the first missionary outreach back in the late 1800s happened in Guatemala through the Presbyterian Church. That was the first church that entered Guatemala. Um, and my great grandfather became a believer. My grandfather and my mom and her siblings were raised Presbyterian. However, my mom, when she came here to the U.S. after my parents got divorced, she came to a Methodist church. She embraced Wesleyanism and eventually met my stepfather. And long story short, that Methodist church ended up leaving the UMC, joined the Nazarene church. So in my side of the family, my nephew, he goes way back. I think he would be like fifth generation. So I thought it would be important, and I have other teens that maybe they're second or third already, but I think it's important for them to remember the importance of how is it that one becomes saved, if I want to use traditional evangelical verbiage. How do I, how do I get right, or how do I become part of God's family? That was my main concern. Therefore, what I did is I took these two words, grace and life, and I did a sermon on them. And then I titled it A Grace Filled Life. Basically, I I'll share in a minute the PowerPoint. Something else that I like to do when I preach is I like to do PowerPoints. Sometimes I like to keep them kind of simple. Sometimes it depends how I feel and how much time I have. But I remember as an undergrad at Indiana Wesleyan, studying under the late Dr. C.S. Coles. He told the whole class, he told us, when you know your audience, when you preach, and he told us, I mean, this is back in, wow, like maybe 2011, 12, around there. And he told us, look, when you ladies and gentlemen preach, at most preach half an hour. I mean, that's like the max. He was like, know your audience. Nowadays, with the invention of, I mean, technology, he gave us a big spiel on technology and how people are, their attention spans are getting even smaller. He was like, if you guys and ladies and gentlemen can preach 23 to 25 minutes, that's the ideal thing to do. At first, for me, that was very hard to do, but I manage. And now I kind of do average about 23, 25 minutes at most. So it's not a very extensive, long sermon. I always try to keep things simple, but not simplistic. And that's even also when I preach on Sundays. When I, with the youth, obviously it's a little bit easier for me. We do our Bible studies. I preach in English. However, when I do preach and obviously on Sundays, I have to do it in Spanish. So I do practice a little bit, try to keep that time. But typically, I mean, it's not a lot here. If as you, ladies and gentlemen, can see, it's you're not going to be able to see it. It's like 2 pages long, my sermon. However, I did do a PowerPoint, and let me go ahead and share that here. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of give you quick points. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole sermon, but kind of quick points here. So obviously, um, I, my sermon is titled "A Grace-Filled Life," and then the passage that I'm going to stick to is Ephesians 2:8, 9, and then Romans 6:26. I did use other ones, but those are the ones I'm going to really engage in. It's just me. I'm used to it. Since I was a teen and throughout Indiana Wesleyan, we used the 1984 NIV, so I'm so used to that. I know we worked with the ESV in class, but that's pretty much, I'm so used to that. So basically, I'm going to concentrate on the word grace and life, but I'm not going to do it like a Bible study or like a word study on it because it is a sermon and I'm gonna keep it under 25 minutes. So it's I'm gonna kind of hit quick points, but basically I always try to start with a introduction, a little personal story. I'm gonna let them know, when I was in the wrestling team in high school back in 96, 97, my last 2 years. I met one of my really good friends in the wrestling team. He was Korean American. We both were about in the same weight class, so we became really good friends. At that time, throughout my high school years, I lived in a predominantly Korean and Latino neighborhood. I mean, that was predominantly, the neighborhood was predominantly Latino and Korean. So we would take the bus together, and I mean, we became really good friends. And I remember once um, we were going home, and he found out that I went to a Spanish speaking Nazarene church, and I found out that he went to a Korean speaking Methodist church. And so we really connected. Long story short, I asked him, hey, why didn't you become a believer? And he kind of looked at me. He was like, dude, like, I was born here in the US. This is a Christian nation. So, and I was baptized, and my great grandparents, you know, became believers in South Korea. So he had this idea that because he got baptized, he was Christian and then he was good, right? So I'm gonna talk a little bit of that. Then obviously I would go ahead and read the passages, which is Ephesians 2:8, 9, and then Romans. I had a little typo there. I just noticed that it's supposed to be 6:23, not 6:26. So don't be looking for 20. Don't be going to look for verse. You know what? I am. Um, yeah, don't go looking for verse 26 because it's not gonna be there. And in fact, I am going to double check here, and I'm pretty sure that is a typo. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a typo. There's no 26, so don't go be looking for verse 26 on chapter 6. So it's 23. So we'll go ahead and read that, and then kind of start developing the sermon. Point one, we're saved by grace. That I'm gonna define, right there in the first point where or sub point where I say that grace is more than just receiving something you don't deserve. This is where I'm gonna define grace in its original language. I, for the most part, maybe because you know, I was also um, influenced a lot by a pastor, professor at Alavat Nazarene. I'm not, I don't. I like to keep it simple, but not simplistic again. So I'm not gonna get into like this is the way you pronounce it, this is the way you spell. No, it's just a basic definition. Or at times, I just like to give examples for and actually this class has been so really interesting because I also do I, I also lead a small group pre-COVID, which is ironic because my main work is with the youth, but my small group is predominantly elderly, especially the elderly sisters, couple of widows. So it's really interesting. I have a nice balance there. And with all this said, is obviously post COVID. Now we're recording our Bible studies on Wednesdays. I record them and we put them in our YouTube channel. So I like to keep things simple but not simplistic. So I don't like to get into um, all of that. Just I like to give the definition or an example for this past Bible study. I actually got to use logos to, you know, um, go ahead and kind of give a better description of a word, what it meant, and I gave them a modern example of like I know of a barbecue. We were talking about fire, so but it's really interesting. So I'm gonna talk about what is grace, the different definitions. I'm not gonna be like, oh, the dictionary of ABC and this guy, X person, Y person. No, I'm not. I'm just gonna be like, look, grace can be defined, can be defined as, showing kindness to someone, goodwill, favor. Um, give them a basic definition, and then you know leave it at that. But I'm still gonna define it. Then other points is how do we receive that gift, and then it's not by works. I'm gonna like talk a little bit about works, what that is. It's not really that I do something, but rather it was circumcision in that context that they thought that you had to be in God's family. You literally had to be an ethnic Jew or you had to convert into a Jew. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. And again, it's just a 2 point sermon because I like to keep it under 25 minutes. And then the next one is that we are saved to live life, not to be good. And this is where I'm also going to define what life is according to the original Greek. Sin brings death. I'm going to talk a little bit what death is. However, salvation makes us come alive or have life. And I'm going to go ahead and elaborate on the meanings of that, and I'm going to interpret it. What is that? You know, with those definitions, let them know that it's a noun. I'm gonna keep it at that. I'm not gonna go beyond that. And then once for example, I talk about how sin brings death in 4 areas of our life, which is biological death, relational death, spiritual death, and sadly, sometimes it could, if you willfully reject Jesus, eternal death. And I'm going to talk about how salvation is something we possess now. It's not like when I die, I'm going to heaven out there, but rather it is, basically, you know, having our relationship come alive, restored with God and our neighbors. Our faith is a relational faith, and we are people of resurrection. We live, we are people that live life. So kind of that. That's I'm gonna basic sermon, kind of an outline there, and then a basic conclusion. You know, kind of emphasize that Jesus did not come to make bad people good. Jesus came to give life to the dead. We are dead when we sin, we're dead, but we are made alive by God's favor through the power of the Holy Spirit when we willfully place our faith and trust in Jesus, and then that makes us come alive. We have salvation now. It's possessive. Salvation starts here and now. We have life here. Yes, there's ramifications and after death, like but it's just continuance of life. It's not like I'm not alive, I'm like I'm gonna be saved once I go to heaven, but no, you know what, we have life now. We've been made alive now, here and now. We possess it right now, and it's just a continuance of life. And in fact, even our relationships, they might be, you know they death might just stop them for a little bit, for a short time, but then one day through the resurrection, and our relationships are going to continue. And finally, I'm going to finish with, have you trusted Jesus? Again, I'm sorry, I apologize, there's a little typo there in that PowerPoint. I noticed that. um, and then end with a prayer, and then let them know that if anybody trusted in Christ, to come and talk to me, give them next steps. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing. um, I'm going to probably be, right now, currently we have a hybrid model. So I work with a couple, and the couple, one Friday a week, they have them in church. The next Friday we do a Zoom meeting. So we kind of have a hybrid right now with the youth, and I'm going to preach this in one of my Fridays Zoom. So that is what I'm going to be doing. I really enjoyed the class. It's helped me be simple, but not be simplistic. It's helped me become a better teacher of the word. Not that I lacked confidence, but definitely gives me at least a little bit more confidence to be like, wow, I'm really, what I'm saying actually kind of sort of makes sense. At least to me it does, but just makes me, be humble and be prayed to be a better vessel, and to be a better servant of the Lord, first to my family, and then to the church that He has called me to be a pastor. Thank you very much. Good luck on your projects, everyone. Good luck on the rest of your classes at NTS, and hopefully we'll see each other in another class. Grace and peace. God bless you.